What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Surf and Sales Podcast. I'm Scott Leese here with my good friend and co-host and partner Richard Harris. What's going on, dude?
I'm doing all right. I was ill on Friday last week, so I sort of got knocked out. But I have a question, Scott.
Yeah,
Are those bowling pins shaped like tequila bottles behind you, or are those tequila bottles that you've set up to look like bowling pins?
neither. Those are bottles of Clase Azul tequila. They're
Right.
not specifically designed to look like bowling pins, but one day, one day we should go bowling and we can use Clase Azul bottles as our bowling pins.
Absolutely. What's the red one in the middle? Is that a special
That's
higher
a
end?
special, yeah, that's like a $500 bottle of Clase Azul mezcal. So,
There you
Oh
go.
wow.
you've made it when you're bowling with empty bottles of Clase Azul, where each pin is worth a couple $100.
Oh my God,
That's
that's
awesome.
Hey,
fantastic.
I wasn't trying to flex, but you brought it up, Richard. You
No,
brought
no,
it.
I'm not asking to flex. Like some people are listening and I'm like, oh, this is something fun to talk about. And it's not a flex. I know you. You love tequila, it's your
Yeah,
thing. And I know you like Clase Azul. And I'm like, well, let's talk about it. So that's
yeah,
all.
yeah. Well, that's what we're doing. But we're going to talk today to the founder and CEO of Magnate. His name is Tobi Oluwole, and he is coming to us all the way from the great province, I guess it's what it's called, of Ontario out in Canada. He's in Ottawa. Toby, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. I actually left
Further
Ottawa in
away.
2023. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
I
did.
Catch
just
up, buddy.
I refuse to update it because I don't actually like people knowing where I am. But I live in Paris, France now.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
What brought about the big change of scenery there?
Growing up, I lived in Belgium with my family. And then in university, I lived in Lyon in France. And I always loved the pace of French life. Um, and I also am very effective and like productive in the afternoons. I'm very useless in the mornings. And
Hmm.
so I actually start my days at like 1, 2 p.m. here, which is like 8 a.m. Eastern. When my team is waking up, I've already done everything, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and so we wanted to travel. We did like 15, 16 countries. I actually met up with some people, Ali, Christian.
yeah.
And so got to do a lot of traveling. So we'll be here for another year and then we'll figure out where to go.
That's awesome. Good for you, man. Good for you. Back to the roots a little bit, actually. Well, tell everybody a little bit about Magnate and maybe the founder's blueprint as well, so people have some context for what you've been building and what you're up to.
Yeah, so I worked at Shopify for 3 years or so, and while I was working there, I mean, since I was like 15, I started a new business every year. I learn by doing, so even if one fails, I'm gonna learn something. And so when I was leaving Shopify, I felt kind of lost. Like, I'm very multi-passionate. I didn't know if I was gonna just build one company, so I decided to just coin Magnate as a holding company for all of the different companies that we have. So we have the Founders Blueprint, which is an 8-week accelerator, helping people build a brand on LinkedIn and then monetize it through high ticket, offers, consulting, things like that. I have another company called Magnate Studio where we work with athletes that are coming to LinkedIn, running their profiles, helping them build professional brands on LinkedIn. And then we have a bunch of other tiny experiments we run all year trying to find. I say to my team, we haven't had our best idea yet. So we stay in a constant state of experimentation. And so that means like, every other month there's like a new idea that we gotta, see if we gotta build or incubate in the company.
Hmm. My my favorite line from one of your posts is that you said something to the effect of you were never really qualified to start any of these businesses. And
Yeah.
that's something that we could have a whole conversation about from a lot of different angles. But tell me what you meant by that and how you kind of overcame what a lot of people would, I think, would feel is like a limitation to getting started.
Yeah. I mean, like growing up, my parents would like start these businesses again every year, clothing, schools, motorcycles. I remember my mom was like motorcycles, racing cars, party restaurants. And so growing up, I just thought failure was part of what you do. Like you wake up, have a shower, fail, go to school. Like it was like part of life. And so when it was my turn to go into business, it didn't really matter if I didn't know anything about it. Like all that mattered was that I was going to give it a good go. Profits were better than wages. And all I had to do was figure out if people wanted it, how do I provide it at a profitable rate? And, my dad kind of raised me on if there's a problem to be solved, there's a business to be built. So I think, from lollipops to noodles to hoverboards, it didn't matter how good the business did as long as someone wanted it and I could provide it, like I would just give it a shot. I lost so much money, but I just call it like the cost of tuition. Like I didn't go to an MBA. I just lost all my money on like clothing lines and hoverboards, you know, uh, which, ended up being about the same amount.
Yeah, you could
How
have
did
gave that money to Stanford or someplace like that, but instead you lost it in the hoverboard business.
because
Yeah.
Makes sense.
well, you should at least have the hoverboard framed behind you like a diploma,
You know what?
and
I actually did for a while because like I went to sell a hoverboard once and the customer pulled a knife on me and robbed me of my hoverboard and the hoverboard that he was trying to buy. And like I literally like broke away. I threw a punch, like I got out, and then he got caught at the mall a week later, like riding the bright green hoverboard, which I branded myself with. How I marketed my hoverboard business is I would just ride it around the city. And when people stopped me, I would pull out my Shopify and sell it to them. And then someone would just like drop ship it to them, right? So that was like I didn't know how to run ads. So I was like, I'd be in Walmart pushing my
You are the
cart.
ad at that point.
I am the ad, right?
right,
Yeah.
And so they find this guy, and I get my hoverboard back, and I write up a story. I send it to every newspaper in the city, and a newspaper ran it. It was like my first five-figure month. Like hoverboard guy gets his, it was like Marty McFly, eat your heart out, or something like
right.
that. You know, and so that's kind of it's always been. I wish I still had my hoverboards.
So here's what I love this entrepreneurial spirit, and even kind of going back to what Scott said around all this stuff, the stuff that could hold you back. Um, how did you know, or how do you know? Okay, cup bait, this is not working. Right there's value, like at least in the 10 minutes I've known you, and the way you described how you grew up, it's like your parents gave everything a good go, right? And then they just knew to
Yes.
stop. And then the same thing with you. Okay, I'm going to give it a good go. Oh my God, this article comes out. I did 5 figures in hoverboards. Okay, how do you know when to stop?
It was so simple. Walmart announced they were selling hoverboards, and I shut down my business. I was
All
like, I'm
right.
not competing with Walmart.
Okay.
I literally, that was like my logic back then. I was like 21. I was like, I'm not going to compete with Walmart.
But how about now, right? So now you have this, you have
Now,
your
yeah,
company, and you try to incubate ideas every month.
yeah,
And we all know the stories of founders who can't stay focused long enough, right? They keep chasing every shiny penny. It feels like you've created some level of discipline around that. And again, in the 10 minutes I know you.
yeah.
So how do you adjust for that? Or how do you teach a founder, either A, pivot, or B, stop chasing shiny pennies?
So I have like a few philosophies that have helped me. The first is I only look for data or dollars, right? So it's like if something, there was one time I did a post and like 2,000 people joined a wait list for something I hadn't created. I'm like, wait, what do they want? Right. And then I go and like figure it out as fast as I can. And then in terms of dollars, like Founders Blueprint started because I got a message in like June 2022 from Ali. She goes, hey Toby, I've seen you on LinkedIn. Curious if you can teach me how to do what you've done on LinkedIn. And she paid me 10 grand. She's like, just teach me how to do it. And in like 4 months, we did 100 grand. And I was like, look at that. I I got a real offer over here, that I can teach. So I'm only really looking for data or dollars, which means if in 30 days we don't have like a bunch of emails or our first couple sales,
Done.
sunset. And so in
That's
those
okay.
30 days, we go, I had a mentor tell me like overkill is underrated. So in those 30 days, we go for massive action. All the emails, all the outbound, like instead of trying to experiment over 6, 7 months, we experiment in 30 days, right? I get in front of as many people. Like that's how we got into working with athletes. Just talked to like 17 people that worked with athletes. We got the first athlete in a week, got the second one, third one, fourth one, right? I'm going, okay, this is legitimate, right? So that's kind of how fast we experiment to make sure that we actually are not just like wasting time, and we hold all of our ideas with an open palm, right? Like I don't believe I'm right. I'm only right when we have data or dollars.
Hmm. I like that
This
phrase.
is this is right up Scott's alley. Like Scott, I'm sitting here.
I like that. I like
Scott,
that phrase. I like that phrase a lot. I'm only right if I
yeah,
have data or dollars. So,
dollars. Yeah.
other than, okay, on the data side, what would be the data that you'd use to show you that you're right?
Wait lists. I wait list everything.
Okay, so
Um,
you throw an event, now you've got 1,000 people on the wait list. I'm right. You throw
yeah.
an event, you
So
got 10 people on
Do
the
you
wait
even
list.
throw the
I'm wrong.
event, or do you create the idea of the event?
if so, if I'm talking to someone and they go like, I'd be so interested in that. Immediately I go, I'll send you the wait list. So it doesn't even matter if I have the wait list or not, right? Like
Yeah.
what I'm looking for is there interest for any of these things? So Founders Blueprint. So we did like over $1 million last year with 2 people in Founders Blueprint last year. But how it started was 3 people on the same week all went, I'd be interested in learning how to like use LinkedIn for my business. I sent them all the same wait list. So the entire wait list was 3 people. After a week, I went back and went, here's what I would teach you over the course of 6 months. And all 3 people signed up, paid between $5,000 and $10,000. And that was the kickoff for Founders Blueprint, right?
Mm.
So my thing is like I sell a lot of stuff before I build it. Like I will 100% sell it because what I learned over the years is it's easier to refund than it is to miss an opportunity. So like if I go through like we tried to launch an agency in November. The first guy that we signed, we start writing his content, like a page worth of feedback, like just like, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't talk like this, and going, all this stuff. I literally went into Stripe, hit refund, shut down the channel. It was done. I was like, I never want to be an employee again. So we're not doing the agency. And that was the end of the entire experiment.
That's great. I mean, do you ever have you ever given up on something and then you saw someone come in and do it and you're like, shit, that was my idea?
Oh yeah,
Or
100%.
do you not look back, or do you not care?
Well, I just feel like, ideas are like the ocean. Like, I'm not going to run out of ideas. I'm not going to run out of leads or money. So if someone else finds a way to, monetize on something, I'm happy for them. Like it doesn't take away from my ability to monetize on my ideas, So I have a lot of like, the ghostwriting, the communities, like almost every idea I've shut down, someone has built successfully. So I say to all of my founders, one of the biggest traps with business is everything works. Someone makes millions of dollars off hats. Someone makes millions of dollars off the garbage can that the hats go into. Everything works. The question is, what are you going to work for 1,000 days to make $1 million or whatever it is your goal is? And the cool thing about business is you only have to be right once. Like so you could actually get it wrong like 1,000 times, go for the thousandth and first time and get it right and change your generations forever.
There's so many nuggets in here. Like, there's so many places I want to go with this. As successful as you are doing this, and I don't know that you have this challenge. We hear a lot of people, and even I think founders have this challenge too of the whole imposter syndrome thing that happens, right? You again, I'm fascinated by this. The way I'm a big believer in like how you grow up really affects who you are, kind of stuff. And so
Yeah.
the way you described how you grew up, like failure just doesn't even like, it's just a word to you, right?
Yeah.
It's just another word in the vocabulary, right? Just like success. One's no better or worse than the other. They're just letters. Did you ever suffer from a imposter syndrome? Have you ever reached a point where you're like, oh my God, can I do this? Or has it really not been there for you? Is that, and it's great if it's not your issue. Like, I don't need to project something on you. I'm just curious for someone of your mentality.
No, I mean the answer is every day. I just, me and my wife handle that. When I mess up a business, I go to my room and my wife rubs my head, gives me a Snickers bar, you know, and I go, I messed up, it didn't work, I don't need to show it to the world, right? Like
Right.
I know that 90% of the time I feel like this might not work, right? But the cool thing is like I have a space to deal with that, right? So, I have a little mastermind group. We talk through our failures and, it didn't work. And, I remember doing a webinar to like 1,000 people. Nobody signed up and paid for anything. I launched a product to a wait list of 4,000 people in 2023, zero sales, right? Like we have those days. They're part of I always say like, it's going to be great content when I decide to write a book, like I think a lot of people think that because my trajectory has looked the way it has is, it just like kicked off, on LinkedIn or whatever it is. I'm like, if you could see the graveyard of my ideas, I think you'd be a lot more terrified of entrepreneurship. It's like the goal is not to be right all the time. The goal is to get it right once. You get it right once, you change everything, right? And so I deal with imposter syndrome every day, but I deal with it with my wife and my Snickers bar, and we keep going the next day.
How long do you, I'm asking from a discipline perspective because I'm part of this because of my kids. They're sort of, they get that stage where like things really bum them out.
Yeah.
For me, for me, I've sort of said I literally will put a timer on my phone and I'll say, okay, you got 30 more minutes to go wallow in this shit, and then you got to turn the page, right? Do you have some mantra like that around you? Like you're like, hey, I know I need to go through this. There's a grieving process. It's an emotional thing. There's a loss. Like, you're a human, right? We're allowed to be disappointed and those kind of things. Um, do you put a limit on it, or is it like, no, I just go through my process and it eventually just sort of works its way out?
Do you know what human design is? Have you ever heard of
No,
human design? You,
no.
you first of all, Scott, both of you, you need to go get your human designs done. It's like one of the most fascinating things.
Never heard of
I'm
this actually.
scared. I
Yeah,
when I
yeah,
hear
no, you,
that,
you 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 have
I'm
to,
like
right?
freaking out.
I know you got
So
to get your human design. So, anyways, part of my human design is I wake up with the belief that every day is going to be a great day. It's just like, I've been this way. It's part of my design. So the deadline for my wallowing is just always 24 hours. I go to bed,
Yeah.
I wake up, we have a second chance, right? So my belief is like, life and entrepreneurship is like Vegas. You have unlimited tries. Like you only run out of tries when you run out of motivation, right? Or when you run out of vision. But if you have enough vision, like I want to retire my parents, I have big dreams. I wrote my own eulogy when I was 22. This at the end of my life, when they bury me, 3 pages long, at the end of my life, when they bury me, this is what they're going to say. Okay. I rewrote it when I was 29. It's 16 pages long. It's very clear what's going to happen at the end of my life. And the reason why it's so trippy is because I've never showed it to anyone. My wife hasn't read it. And I had a friend describe me once with a sentence from my eulogy. So you're just like reverse engineering your life. So pretty much all it means is like I just wake up tomorrow and just go again.
Hmm.
awesome. That's really
You
cool.
said
I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you.
you said a few times that you only have to get it right once. Do you feel like you've gotten it right once yet?
100%. Like
Okay.
I yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So my next question then is what are you pushing for now? Why go beyond that? You've got it right. Why not just kind of coast at that point in time?
I
Stay
mean,
where you're at. Because now what you're trying to do is you're actually trying to get it right twice now.
No, I think like, if you have enough reasons, you can do the most incredible things, So I've gotten it right for me and my family. Like we don't have to worry about money, right? Um, but if I just look, 2 degrees away, and there's all these other problems. So part of why I'm still going is because like I want my dad to like fly private one day. He spent $400,000 on our tuition, gave up his retirement so that we could have, good education. Like I want to say thank you. He's never asked for anything, you know. Um, and it's the same like, with my mom and all this other stuff. Like the whole point of the eulogy and the reason why it's so long, is because at the end of my life, people said, Toby was present and Toby was generous, right? And so everything I'm working for now is more towards self-actualization, right?
Mhm.
Like I feel like
You
I've
only had to get it
already,
right once for you, but now you have to get it right a second time, a third time, because you have more to do in the world and more other people to help out. That's
yeah,
what it sounds
and
like.
also kind of, but also like when I say I got it right once, like with LinkedIn, making my first $2 million with LinkedIn, buying my first home, having an asset, paying off all the debt, taking care of my parents. Like that was me getting it right once, right? And I think that's really what I mean. Like my kids will always have a home and will likely never have a mortgage, which is a form of generational wealth,
Yep.
right? If they need to go to school, there's a fund for them, right? Like I have equity in a business that's doing really well, right? So like I actually have gotten it right once enough because getting it right once doesn't mean you need to go back. You just like, like you're in the right. Like you make your first $10 million and you deploy a bunch of funds. The first time you got it right, like now you're in the right. So I think I'm on like my 15th business. And I
Mhm.
just say to people that, it was the same thing with Shopify. Like I applied to Shopify 7 times in 3 years. And everyone was like, dude, are you insane? Like, why do you keep applying there? I was like, well, they have to let me in eventually. Like they're not just gonna like we can't go till 2038 and they're gonna say no. So the seventh time when I got in, they literally skipped me past the entire. They're like, "We've seen you so much," and I got the job in like 8 days. You know, and they were just like, "Yeah, like you deserve to be here." So I have that doggedness around me. Like if I believe that this is the path I need to go through, like you'll either see me there or like dead on the side trying.
Do you do you worry at all that you've you've kind of locked yourself into this one platform and now they have the ability to make changes and tweaks that kind of renders the network that you've built and the impact that you can have less powerful than it's historically been?
Yeah, I lost my profile 3 times last year,
How come?
and I think one, I was sending too many messages because LinkedIn is interesting, right? Like they want you to pay for whatever you're going to do, right? It's not
Right.
that they don't want you to do it; they just want you to pay for it. So, we were sending a bunch of messages out. I found a loophole, so I had like an inbox, connection request. You can only have 30,000 connections. I had
Mhm.
an inbox of 8,000 inbound connection requests. Now, there's a little loophole where you can message instead of accepting, right? And so I was just messaging hundreds of them and they can reply. So I was messaging hundreds of them, pushing them into my email list and clearing my inbox. And they just kicked me out. They're like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, why? Like it's a loophole that exists. Why
Yeah.
can't I? They're my audience, right?
Right.
So that was the first time I got kicked out. The second time I got kicked out, I made a post about how I bought my mom a car. And I basically said like a lot of people think I care about LinkedIn, but I don't. I don't care about LinkedIn. I care about the life I get to provide because of this platform that I'm posting on. I kid you not, 2 hours later I was gone.
Wow.
My entire profile was gone. And again, I'm like, you guys are so petty. Like, of course I care about you. It was like, listen, baby, I do care about you,
Right.
Um, so like and then the third time was like a couple weeks ago. I don't know what happened, but I am. So what I did last year was like after I got kicked out the first time, I took a weekend and I learned how to run ads. And I just like locked myself in the room.
Ads on LinkedIn, you mean?
No, ads on Instagram and Facebook.
Anywhere.
No,
Gotcha.
ads on
Okay.
Instagram and Facebook. And LinkedIn, like I don't touch the ads, but like Instagram, Facebook, because even if, I say if they blow up my entire life right now, I am putting together a $10,000 offer and I'm spending $10,000 a month on ads and I'm going to rebuild my entire life. And so the ads were very important. I tried a lot of things. I tried like, organic video on Instagram. Dude, I'm like exhausted by video. I'll do like a podcast like this,
Tell me
but you
about
tell
it.
me to sit down and like, do the line and do the thing, like get out of
Yeah.
here. And
Yeah.
then Twitter, cesspool, TikTok, I'm not dancing. So I was like, okay, I need to learn ads, so that was like my logic tree. And so I learned ads, and we started spending last year. Right now we have like a 10x ROAS on every dollar we spend, we make 10 back. And like I literally learned it in like the course of like a month, right? So I did that because now I'm not as scared of losing my LinkedIn. Like if I lose it, it's going to be really shitty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
But it's not the end of the world anymore now.
it's not
Yeah.
the end of the world
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get it back? I mean, because that becomes a whole like, are you now on speed dial with someone every time they do something? You know who to contact,
No, I
because
mean,
usually,
if you have premium, you can chat with them. So what I do
right,
is like I submit like 8 chat tickets back to back to back to back, like
right,
until like someone like gets me back within 24 hours.
right,
And then I have a friend at LinkedIn in London that sometimes I'm like, listen, this is an emergency. I
right,
need you to get the profile back.
right.
So
That's how you're doing it.
that's how I'm doing it. And
Yeah.
so I've had a
Everybody's
couple
got a
friends
friend
lose
or
their
everybody's got a brother.
profiles. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it's been interesting, but I have learned a lot from LinkedIn. Like I've played the virality game, I've played the like, Twitter screenshot game, like the algorithm game. And at the end of the day, like I'm at like 300 something thousand followers now.
Yeah.
All I want LinkedIn to allow me to do is message all my followers, but they'll never
Oh,
allow me to do that.
no, they'll
Right.
never let you do that.
Like
So
Never.
there is one hack. Do you have a newsletter, Toby, on LinkedIn?
not on LinkedIn.
So when you start your newsletter on LinkedIn, if you start one, it is the only thing that will send to every one of your connections and followers the first time.
I
And
did that.
then only your followers could see your link newsletter. But that newsletter
Yeah.
does, like, I went and did it, and I now have 8,000 followers on my LinkedIn newsletter. Now, do I might get a ton of views when I write a newsletter? No. But it just becomes that next SEO piece, right? That
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
back to my website and all that stuff. But that's the only hack I've figured out that lets you get to a message guaranteed to go to their inbox is your first newsletter.
There's another one that we teach in our program that a student taught to us. I'm not going to drop the name here, but because it's still like a trade secret. But
Right.
basically, like it'll essentially allow you to send like up to like 3,000 connection requests to a
Right.
specific ICP every single month, and you can message them once like it's all automated, right? And that is an insane hack. Like
But how can you do that if you've got 30,000 connections already and you're maxed out?
So I have a VA. I just tell them like delete everybody from like these specific regions because I don't know them.
Just start over.
So I basically just like
You
go clear
just
up.
delete 3,000 people, add
Yeah.
3,000
Like I'll
people,
just
delete.
delete like a bunch of people, right? But
Yeah.
even with that tool, like you can also just do messages. Like you don't have
Yeah.
to actually do connection requests. So like
Yeah.
when I wanted to test the agency,
Yeah.
I used this tool. I think it was like 1,000 messages in like 5 or 6 days to all my
Yeah.
first degree connections with the title founder or CEO. Message into a book call, I booked some calls, got the first client. Then we started, and then I didn't like it, so we shut it down. So because we could test it so fast, though, like we knew it wasn't something we wanted to do.
Yeah. I've used some of those tools too, and I've just gotten too wary of them lately. So
Yeah. LinkedIn is finicky though. Like they'll kick you out for that,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and
in a heartbeat.
so I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn for
Oh
sure.
man, I think we all do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we all do.
I think
Yeah,
Scott likes to call it a hate love relationship. He
yeah.
he
Hate love
he
relationship.
hates to love them. He really
Yeah,
hates
Yeah.
loving them.
yeah. You'll know I've fully made it when I just disappear off that.
That's what
It
Justin
is.
said.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the funny thing too is like we talk to enough people, and Toby, you're one of those guys. It's like, why has nobody disrupted them? Like, why are they the only business platform out there? Like, it's
Great question.
crazy. Like it's
I don't know. I mean,
Snapchat came and then Instagram and then what I mean, just like there's some monolith they have around all this. I don't know what it is. Anyway, it's a whole nother discussion. We should
yeah, it really
we
is.
should we should take that offline and go see what we can do with what kind of data or dollars we can get in 30 days. Uh, dude, this has been awesome. It's flying by. Like I would love to just sit down and have a cocktail with you and share a meal one day and just talk life as much as business because I really appreciate your vibe on everything. Very opposite of mine, which is constantly negative. I need to surround myself with positive people.
That's
Uh,
so funny.
but before we wrap up, we always sort of turn it to you. What question can we answer for you if there is one?
I need to know, Scott, like how you built like all the way to like 8 or 10 million with such a small team. Like I remember that post and I went like, how?
Yeah.
Because you feel like you need a lot of people to make a lot of money.
It's interesting that you say that because the way I think of it is having a lot of people prevents me from making a lot of money. So it's just a different vantage point, you know. Um, I don't have a VA. I've never paid for one. I don't have a appointment setter, SDR kind of person. Don't do any of that. I don't even outbound, to be honest with you. So sending thousands of messages, like if I did stuff like that, I'd probably earn more. But in order to do that, I have to hire somebody and then I have to pay them and then I have to manage them and then I have to trust them. And it's just like too much for me.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. So, a few ways I can answer this. The first way is I didn't start at nothing. I started already earning a couple $100,000 a year because I was moonlighting consulting and side hustle stuff while I was a full-time VP of sales. Okay. So I didn't start from zero. I also spent almost 20 years in theory building a resume um, of wins, a resume of credibility, a resume of references and people that might be able to refer me business and stuff like that. Okay, so I had arguably I had like a pedigree where there was some credibility there already.
There.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that helped me start my price points higher. So I didn't have to start off with like, hey, talk to me for $100 a month.
Yeah.
Right? And then work my way up. I could start at a much higher place and then keep trying to work my way up. And then I just diversified a lot. So there's consulting, there's events, this podcast, there's communities that I've done. There's 3 books that I've written. There's investments, angel investments in tech, regular investments. There's real estate businesses that I have and property. So just like, I have like 14, 15 different streams of income. So if somebody shuts off my LinkedIn today, okay, that's going to impact one of my businesses, but not necessarily all of my businesses.
Yeah.
So it built some protections there. I did a very good job, I think, of partnering with people. So that old adage of, 50% of something is worth more than 100% of nothing. That was a big deal to me, right? If you look at surf and sales, for example, it's me, Richard, plus somebody that people aren't aware of is our friend Jeff, who does all the like back end logistics of everything. So I didn't have to build a website and figure out, payment processing and taxes for the business and stuff like that, because Jeff handles that stuff. And Richard and I could focus on kind of being the faces of the business and trying to, sell tickets and get sponsors and whatnot. You look at the podcast. I don't do the podcast myself. I have a partner with the podcast, right? And while we're not like super specific about delineation of responsibilities, Richard does all of the back end uploading of things and whatnot. I'd probably book more guests than he does, right? So things like that, it's selling tickets to the event. I probably sell more tickets to the event, right? The point is, like, I partnered up with other people who are doing complementary things that I'm not good at. I started Thursday night sales with Justin Welsh in 2020. Well, we did that for a little while. He didn't want to do it anymore. I found another partner to step in, and then her and I found a couple other people to help us with different parts of things. So I'm never just trying to like fully lift something completely on my own if I can get help from somebody. Right now I coach a good group of VPs of sales and CROs, right? We have a community. I don't publicize it or talk about it, but I have this intern kid who reached out to me and was like, I'll build all these things for you, and all I want is a certain percentage of the profits that you make. And I'm like, okay, of course, sure, right? So you stack all these things on top of each other, and it amounts to about $9 million of revenue in 5 years and 90 something percent margins. I only have one full-time employee. I hired her 3 years ago. So the first 2 years, it was just me. And now it's just one person. So that's the best answer I can give you, I think. Hopefully it's satisfactory for you.
It's a good answer. I think I saw that post and I sent it to my co-founder when you made it. And I literally just said, I knew it was possible, because when I worked at Shopify, we would see these super, I remember it was a $70 million company. It was 4 employees, and you start to realize that what is celebrated in tech with these like big, like funding, and then like these 17,000 people we hired, like there's all these other ways to do it, right? And so we've idolized the Klaviyo's and the WhatsApps and all these like small teams, super efficient. But I think those are tech companies. I think seeing you do it is like, okay, so you can do it, even with a normal company, And so I love your thoughts around partnering. You have such a good, reputation in the streets, even though like you're not in the streets. But like everyone that I know that knows you has the best things to say about you, which I think says everything about you. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That means a lot. If you ever want to partner on something in France, let me know.
Right. We're like, when are we going to the French Riviera for surf and sales, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, no, that's awesome.
Tobi, how can folks get a hold of you, man? This has been fascinating. I really appreciate it. I've learned so much from you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn daily. The Tobi Oluwole or Tobi Oluwole on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram now that I'm running ads. Also the Tobi Oluwole there. And then I have an email list, not a newsletter, called Life on Your Terms, which is somewhere, tobioluwole.com/LinkedIn.
Sweet.
Great. Well, we love it, man. So good to spend some time.
Richard, your number one takeaway from Tobi is what?
My number one takeaway is the data or dollars.
Yeah.
And 30 days. I need data or dollars in 30 days. That resonates because I move too slow.
Yeah.
Right. Scott, I believe you followed that already.
I'm already following. Well, I'm already following he gets 24 hours to give himself a pity party and then he moves on. I'm pretty good at that as well. Yeah. The big takeaway for me is this work he's doing with ads, Facebook and Instagram and ads and stuff like that. I've never spent a dime on any of this stuff. I don't know anything about it, but now I'm sitting here thinking, maybe I'm an idiot because maybe I could do something with that. I don't need to hire a big, huge team. Maybe I just need to learn this thing and explore it. So,
but remember,
I might do that.
He did it. He didn't do it to go make money. He did it in case of the LinkedIn thing. And then it just so happened he got the data in dollars, right? If I remember the story.
Tomato, Richard. The reason for him doing it can be different than the reasons that I do it. Okay?
No, listen,
I will say though, like, I was never a fan of spending money. Like the first time I actually had to spend money, I was very angry. Like I had to send my sales rep a big commission check for January, and like I almost cried because I was like, that's my money, But with ads, what was so fascinating was, again, I went all in like December 9th to December 9th to January 18th. I was like, I'm gonna go all in on this for 30 days and see what happens. And it was like we spent like $25,000 or something on ads
in 1 month.
In 1 month. But the revenue was $311,000 on it.
Jesus.
Because essentially all you're doing is I'm taking this super validated thing and I'm putting it in front of everybody I know will care about it.
Yeah.
Which LinkedIn will not let you do.
Do you teach people how to do this ad stuff?
Yeah, we just built it into our blueprint. Like
he just started the wait list right now. The wait list.
You're the
one
first
person,
on the
Scott Leese, is on the wait list.
I'll take that too. Oh my God.
Fantastic. Wonderful to talk with you, man. We enjoyed it. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate it. You too.
Stay happy, stay motivated, stay successful. We'll see everybody next time on the Surface podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.